Montana, and he's got 16 playoff victories.
Well, Montana was Brady's hero.
Yeah, he grew up in California.
Yeah, not what I was going to say was Montana went from 49ers to Chiefs and took them to the championship.
Okay, it's 8:30. I call this meeting to order. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation.
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning to everyone. Just a few moments ago, we had 53 people on the Zoom call listening in. Thank you for attending. We have a pretty busy agenda today. There are agendas on the table over there if anyone in the room would like one. And on top of all of our regular business, we have several folks this morning that are here to talk about some marijuana growing in Orneville, a marijuana dispensary in Greenville Junction, and the status of the ski mountain on Big Moose Mountain. So to alleviate the blockage in the room and allow these people to come in and out of the room when their hearings are here, we're going to address the resolution, seeing as that's the majority of the crowd out here, before we go much further. So, good morning, gentlemen. I have a motion to, we're going to accept the minutes from last meeting first. So, I'm going to do item number 1 on the agenda. Piscataquis County Commissioners to review for approval the minutes of their January 5th, 2021 meeting.
I move approval of it. Second.
Moved and seconded. Does anyone have any questions or find any discrepancies in the minutes? Okay, hearing none. Anyone else that reviewed last month's or last meeting's minutes have any questions? Seeing none. All in favor of accepting minutes?
Aye.
I accept it as read. Okay, now we're going to skip down to other business. And here's the resolution. I have a motion.
Motion, we open the meeting to discuss the resolution.
Motion.
Second.
Seconded. Okay, so the motion to sign the resolution that was submitted to the governor and the media as of Thursday is on the table. Anyone have anything to say about the motion?
Yes.
Okay, the commissioners first.
I agree with it. It's been
Okay,
definitely talked about.
well, then I'm going to talk about it for a second, and then I'll open it up for anybody in the room with questions. Simple reasoning behind the commissioners continuing with this resolution. We have throughout the last year been solid. Before Commissioner Torbett was here, Commissioner Annis was on board. We sent a letter to the governor back circa April. I may be off on my date. I don't know exactly the date. The governor has yet to acknowledge that we sent the letter. The letter was simply that the county commissioners in Piscataquis desired to have representation as she started to reopen the state from her initial lockdown. We never were responded to in any form. The desire of the commissioners continually throughout this process is that we continue in this state to have a representative form of government. It is our desire that the governor allow the legislature, the senators, and the representatives that we send to Augusta to be heard. It is not our intent to tell any private business or any private individual what to do or what not to do. It is solely that no one person in this state have that authority. We are not ruled by one, we are ruled by a representation in a formal setting. So when rights are taken from the people, They're done by with representation. That has failed to happen in this state. So, yes, the governor is getting advice, and she may be getting great advice, or she may be getting flawed advice. But what she is not getting is the advice that we send, and that is totally unconstitutional. So it is our desire that all of the science be heard. It is our desire that the governor opens the legislature. We're open here to any opportunity she has. In that letter, we told her that we would be happy to do phone conversations or Zoom or Skype or any other form of electronic communications, or we could be present in 2 hours at any given moment, as long as there was a safe way to do it. So yeah, we would social distance and set up in a large room. 20 feet apart would be fine, but she never responded. So it is solely our decision here to have the people of Piscataquis County receive the representation that they deserve. That is the whole reason for the resolution. As far as any other accusations, there is no malice toward anyone in this, and there is no denying of science toward anything. No one has come out and said, here's some facts, this is why you're incorrect. They've just come out and said, you're incorrect because we say so. I'm sorry, but that's not following the science. So, with that said, does anyone here have any questions or comments they'd like to make?
That letter in the spring was sent along with Waldo and Washington County and the Aroostook. It wasn't just us, it was 2 other counties, but 3 other counties.
So does anyone have any questions or comments? Or yes, ma'am. Could you please stand up and state your name?
Frequently shows, and I live in Villa Foxcroft. What you said sounds very reasonable.
Thank you.
And however, you had 20 points in this resolution, and several of them are inaccurate, especially pertaining to math. My daughter is a doctor in the Boston area. I hear a lot about it. And math are one of the ways we should be. And this whole state never fully, and especially in this county, never fully wore their masks. I know stores, the owners didn't wear masks. I don't go to those stores. I will again when they start. But you can't say masks don't work. Everyone would do it with their distancing, with washing hands. It is workable. But to say it causes diseases, the research I did, the only thing I could find that masks cause problems. If you work in a toxic waste site, you don't wear them because it will cause problems. You have to have special equipment. But for the virus, with coronavirus, this is the way. So there's a couple things in there that are accurate.
Thank
I
you.
don't support that, so therefore I didn't want you sending this, signing it.
Thank you. I appreciate your concerns. However, the point is that there have been multiple studies over the past 100 years. CDC has funded more than 40 of them about the general population wearing masks in everyday life. Walking across that dusty parking lot in the cold and then walking into a warm building and then going back into the cold creates condensation on a mask. And there are issues. There are doctors and scientists that are in opposition to that. But the problem here isn't that masks are great or masks are terrible. The problem here is that we are not allowed to sit at the table and have the discussion. I appreciate you coming today. I appreciate you voicing your concern. But the point of this resolution isn't that our word is going to trump someone else's word and declare masks bad. The point is that the opposition to mask wearing is a valid point that should be discussed, and there should be an opportunity for both sides to share real data and real scientific studies. There are peer-reviewed studies available that talk about masks not being healthy for the general population to wear in everyday life. Masks generally are designed for sterile environments, and medical professionals, like your daughter, probably change their mask multiple times in the course of a day. But people that aren't trained wearing masks, that aren't changing them, causes trouble. However, that's not the debate. We're not here to debate masks. We're here to discuss a resolution that is focused on having an opportunity to join into that debate. I want to see that very topic debated in my government before we have one person forcing mandates on a state that is collapsing our economy. We have a massive economic catastrophe here now. It's not looming, it's not next year, it's upon us. We are dealing with failed businesses in probably close to 1,000 in this state. So, you know, that is a real issue. I do, again, thank you for your concerns, and I would love to hear those concerns debated in our government. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
My name is Mike Kagan, I'm from Quebec. With regards to the resolution, I agree with the intent of the resolution. I don't agree with all of the language, but that's, you know, we all have poetic license. I think, though, that we should not be getting into arguments about science, math, etc. My biggest concern is that, as I saw battle lines drawn in this county, I shared with you, it's like we're in a situation where the operation is a success, yet the patient is dying. This county is dying. If you don't realize that, then you're not seeing things. We spoke about nursing homes. If I told you that I took my grandmother and I put her in an 8x10 room and I kept everybody away from her, you would haul me into jail for elder abuse. And I see so many signs out here that say there's no excuse for elder abuse. Yet, we're not able to talk about how do we keep our nursing home residents safe, yet give them back their lives. Gentleman in the middle there shared today just lost a loved one in a nursing home within isolation who experienced mental decline. So I just want to say that this county has to come together and solve problems that are real, problems that span Republican and Democrat, left and right. I really do appreciate what has been shared with regards to we're asking for a seat at the table. We as a society have lost the ability nationwide to talk. It's an art form now, you know, and so we write letters and they meet cold hearts or they meet defensive hearts, and it just goes on and on and on. And I have to sit back and believe me, I have no desire to be in politics. I have no desire to be involved in any of that. But when I see the county that I have moved to, I live here by choice, not because I'm stuck here. I moved here for the reason that I love this county. I fell in love with it. And now I see it dying because the battle lines are being drawn and we stop talking. I shared with one of the commissioners that we have a food security problem. Yet we have food banks that can't give away food. How does that make sense? Well, because you can't allow people to come in and pick up food. You have to prepackage it, and if some stuff doesn't meet the criteria, then it sits on the shelf. I took at least 100 pounds of food down to the Bangor homeless shelter because they couldn't give it away here. How does that make sense? We are not solving the county's problems by standing on rhetoric, by fighting. We need a voice at the table. If Janet Mills, who has a heart, who is a human being, had the opportunity to hear about what's going on in the nursing home, what's going on with our food bank, I am sure, well, I would pray, that she would understand and that she would hear our heart. But if we don't have a seat at the table, we're just a bunch of Republicans, or we're just a bunch of conservatives, or we're just a bunch of people that she just needs to build a wall and oppose. There's got to be a way. I don't know the way. There's got to be a way to get to the table and help her understand the real human being, as opposed to the rhetoric that's just been flying all over, you know, like we got reporters out there, I'm sure we'll read about all this and it'll have its slants one way or the other. In the meantime, we don't do something, our county is going to die. And maybe I think I'm being extreme or being really harsh, but I see it happening. And we got to do something about it. And the only people that can do anything about it are people sitting in this room and their friends and their families. So I've spoken way more than I need to.
Thank you very much. Anyone else have anything? Yes.
Fantastic, Silver Fox Crosses. You know, I think that one of the things that you guys have done is a great service to just getting the conversation started of how we get the legislature back in session and how, to your point, Mr. White, that we can have a seat at the table again. You know, I think that Mr. Kagan, that's correct. I agree with your concern. You know, we got I think that the way that we have portrayed it has been more of a headline grabbing method than understanding the real issue. And of course, I think we all know they're in all these institutions are invitation only to the governor's press conference. So there's no incentive there to challenge. So ultimately, you know, I think you should sign this resolution and push it forward. If nothing else, but it will encourage conversation about how to get a seat at the table and how to have a conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, a couple of anecdotal examples that were given to me, and Mr. Kagan mentioned one this morning. Two people sharing a room in a nursing home can be in the room all day long and all night long, but if meals are brought, they can't eat together. They can't have a discussion while they're having a meal. They're in the same tiny little room, and somehow, you know, eating a meal and having a discussion is going to change things. It's conflicts like this in rationale that is prompting this resolution. You know, I know the media loves to say that we're xenophobic and that we're science deniers, and that's absolutely not the case. We truly just want a seat at the table, and that's what it boils down to. There may be language in there that is easy for someone to stir the pot with, but it certainly isn't about stirring a pot. It isn't about causing conflict. It certainly isn't about, you know, pitting one group of people against another. Our desire and our request is the same that it was months ago, almost a year ago, that we have a seat at the table and that these things can be brought up in a place where people can have a rational discussion and that they can debate facts, not just sound bites, and not fear and not anxiety that people are feeding into all over our media. So, thank you all. If there's no one else that has any questions or comments, we're going to move the resolution. Yes, sir.
I have a question. I have a comment.
Who is this?
This is Leslie Furno. a lot of people on Zoom who would like to speak, and we are part of the meeting. So I ask you to please recognize the people who are on the Zoom meeting. I have some comments for the commissioners. I'm Dr. Leslie Furno. I'm a resident of Dover Foxcroft, and I just want to tell you I am deeply dismayed over the resolution of protest. It's true this last year has been really difficult for the county and also for the whole country. We've had a lot of heartbreak, isolation, loss of lives, including in our own nursing homes in our region from COVID. I think your resolution does not address the issues that we need to address. You will have opportunities, there are opportunities for conversation, but we are not, you talk about debating facts. You're not presenting facts. Your resolution has many false statements, misleading and false statements. There is no sound scientific evidence that mask wearing causes respiratory illness. Several studies, many studies have affirmed that mask wearing combined with social distancing and hand washing reduce the risk of transmission and passing of the virus from person to person. And more importantly, masking reduces the severity of illness and the likelihood of dying if you do get infected. You say that we haven't had any cases in Piscataquis County. We have had cases, and there are cases that are creeping closer to our borders in Dexter and in other areas in Penobscot County. We are having increasing numbers of cases daily in Maine. It is only a matter of time before we'll see them here, more virulent strains probably as well in our county. Now is not the time to let up on proven public health measures. And, you know, I think that rather than it is, the data show that older people have a higher death rate and greater illness from COVID. People in poverty have higher infection rates and worse outcomes from COVID. People with pre-existing underlying illnesses such as COPD, lung disease, diabetes, cancer, heart disease have higher risks of COVID. Nearly 1/4 of Piscataquis County residents are over age 65. Piscataquis County has some of the poorest health ranking and highest rates of chronic medical conditions in the state, including those diseases, heart disease, obesity, chronic lung disease, and diabetes. 1/5 of our residents live below the federal poverty rate. So the population in this county is at very high risk should the virus appear here, and it has, and should it become more widespread. So it's really important that we continue to do what we can to protect our neighbors by continuing to mask, social distance, and wash hands. And making adopting the direction that you've taken of protest and obstructionism and horrifying xenophobia and anti-scientific abandonment of proven safety efforts is just the wrong way to go. If county commissioners really are concerned about all the things you say in your protest, in your petition, about substance use disorder, the rise in substance use disorder and overdoses and depression and domestic violence, which are all very concerning and very serious, your efforts would be much better directed to supporting workforce education, addressing the epidemic of domestic violence, supporting mental health and substance use disorder treatment, working towards relieving the poverty we experience in our county. Now, I know that this is not your bailiwick of responsibility, but you yourselves have digressed into the healthcare and social support arena by making this proposal. And I propose that you consider that you can do better than simply protest. You can do some work towards a sustainable vision for raising up our county, working with people in your county if you choose to. I know there are many other people in this county who are working towards these goals who would welcome your support. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have one question for you if you're still on the line.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All of those things that you mentioned that we should be doing, I believe that we are very active in all of those regards. And I would ask, how exactly is it that not being allowed to have the Senate or the House in communication with the governor and the other offices in the state, how do we achieve that when our government is being operated unilaterally by one person? And how do we get any of that accomplished when we're not allowed to have a seat at the table and discuss any of these things?
Well, actually, sir, that's not true. So
Yes, it
you,
is.
you,
Yes,
you
it
want
is.
to debate, debate something that I don't agree with. I don't agree that your premise is correct. There is a lot of collaboration
stop.
and cooperation happening in the state, and the caucuses are meeting regularly. They are meeting on Zoom. They are not meeting in person. The legislature will be reconvening by Zoom, and that doesn't mean they're not meeting. And
What is happening at those meetings is very limited in scope, and it is these things are not being discussed. They're being shut out. And that is absolutely the truth.
well,
So-
you know, you tried very hard to shut out over 100 people here on Zoom. And it was only because I raised my voice I had my hand raised for the last half hour. So it is, you have to make the effort.
Well, first off, it was stated before the meeting that we were not going to take questions over Zoom. And we were
That
very
is-
gracious to allow you.
That is not appropriate. This is a meeting, and all people who are present, whether they're present in person or present on Zoom, are entitled, should be recognized and are entitled to speak. That is not, if you are a public meeting, you've lived through the last year of our lives, much of which is conducted on Zoom. I conduct almost all of my meetings on Zoom, and we recognize people in the room. And that's
what you're
the
saying-
way it
what you're
works. So
saying is-
if you haven't learned that yet, maybe you haven't learned enough, because
So
this
what
is
you're
the
saying
time
is
we have to
that-
do this.
Will you stop cutting off the chairman? I am agreeing with you for a moment. I think you are absolutely correct that we have technology enough that we can conduct business. I think that is the point of the resolution in a nutshell. This body, along with the rest of the state, deserves to have a seat at the table, and I thank you for joining our meeting this morning. And just like you wanting to speak today, we have a desire to have representation in Augusta. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you.
I would like to be recognized. This is Cynthia Freeman Sear. I live here in Dover Foxcroft, and I have for decades. I have worked to support survivors and to create a healthier environment for decades for victims of domestic violence. It is not
Will you
helpful.
wait until you're acknowledged?
She should be acknowledged.
What was that, Mr. Commissioner?
I believe she should be acknowledged to speak.
Okay. Okay, you are acknowledged. Please state your piece.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that your entire resolution is not about being represented. It is about misinformation regarding survivors of domestic violence, people experiencing substance abuse disorder, and all of us who live here in Piscataquis County, where I have lived for decades. My name is Cynthia Freeman Sear. I have worked to support survivors of domestic violence and to create a healthier community for decades. It is not helpful when community leaders, such as yourselves, work at cross purposes with health experts and domestic violence experts, especially in the midst of a health crisis. And I ask you to rescind your resolution. I have a statement to read from the Director of Partners for Peace. The Domestic Violence Resource Center.
How long is your statement?
It'll take me about 30 seconds.
Okay, 30, that's about what you have because we have another meeting here in about 35 seconds.
It would have been really helpful to have some guidelines around this meeting prior to it.
Guidelines were that if you had a question or a statement, you had to come in person. So please continue.
Partners for Peace, the Domestic Violence Resource Center serving Piscataquis County, would like to speak to the use of domestic violence as one of the justifications for lifting current health and safety mandates raised in the County Commissioner's proclamation recently submitted to Governor Mills. While many societal challenges contribute to the complexity of the abuse and violence, including COVID-19, only the choice of the abuser to abstain from engaging in coercive control, manipulation, and physical assault will result in the elimination of domestic violence. It is harmful and short-sighted to conflate guidelines implemented to control a global pandemic with the human rights issue of domestic abuse. At Partners for Peace, we have been working side by side with victim survivors during the pandemic to ensure they have the services they need to stay safe and escape the abuse if they so choose. We have done this while following the safety guidelines put into place by the CDC and the governor of our great state. Asking the governor to repeal the Stay Safer at Home order or the face mask mandate will not result in increased safety for the victim survivors we work so closely with. This preposterous suggestion will create an added layer of strain for victims of abuse as they deal with the fear that comes with the possibility of contracting the virus. In 2020, 73% of victim survivors served by DV resource centers in Maine stated that they had elevated safety concerns because of social distancing and COVID-19, and 97% of those same individuals were assisted when services were restricted, even when they were not able to meet with an advocate in person. If our community wants to do better with regards to our most vulnerable community members, they should support organizations like ours and medical professionals who have created safe and effective pathways to providing services. The best thing we can do right now is come together as a community by following the guidelines that have been provided to us while creatively problem solving how to meet the needs of those who are hurting right now.
Okay, you're 3 minutes into this 30 seconds here, so we're going to stop right there.
Sir, there are many more people who have their hands raised who deserve to be recognized in this public forum. Would you please select one of the members with their hand raised to recognize?
No, I will not. We will not run this meeting.
This
Please
is a
stop
public
interrupting.
forum. We demand recognition in this public forum.
This is a violation of open meeting laws by not recognizing us.
You're telling us that you'd like representation in the state government, and you are excluding the over 100 people on Zoom who've decided to attend today.
They're trying to shut us all down. They took all of the audio off in some. No, I'm open.
County commissioners, please select another constituent to be heard.
I'd like to speak. Can you hear me? This is Kent Black in Medford. I would like to speak. Would you give me permission to do that?
Kent, this is Chris Moss. I think the commissioners have abandoned us, but there's still 114 of us on. So go ahead, Kent.
Well, I, for one, have been pretty put off by this supposed Zoom meeting of a county commissioners meeting. It's a bit of a joke. But I definitely would like to make sure that the letter that I sent to the commission is entered into the record as part of this discussion. Is there anyone there that can acknowledge that they would do that?
Evidently not, Kent.
How very interesting. Well, I think I'll have to join a chorus of people who would ask very strongly that the commissioners resign their position. This is totally irresponsible.
Thank you. This is Chris Moss. I'd like a minute, if it's okay with the 113 other people on.
Please go ahead.
Chris, can you just, the recording symbol is still showing. So is this being recorded?
By the county, yes.
Okay, great.
Not by us. The county commissioners spend their lives seeing to the economic welfare of the county, as well as law enforcement and such. It strikes me that one of the motives might have been for them to publish this to open up businesses again and get the county's businesses going. If that's the case, I wonder if they have discussed this memo with the economic engines of the county, PCEDC, which the county gives $100,000 a year to, the Chamber of Commerce in Dover, and the Moosehead people, and about $3 million a year comes into the Foxcroft Academy for foreign students. All of these people are potentially affected by this resolution. And I wonder if the county commissioners have bothered visiting with these folks to see what kind of an effect it has on us. Thank you. Who's next?
Hi, Chris. This is Denise Bazzelli from the Chamber. How is everyone?
Hi, Denise.
Hi.
Did you
I'm really glad you brought that up. My board of directors and I are meeting this week, and one of the items on our agenda that I have asked to be part of the agenda is how we can publicly respond to this situation. We've been kind of going back and forth, trying to figure out, the best course of action. I can tell you we were not spoken to about this. There were no meetings with the chamber. I don't believe Economic Development Council was consulted on this either at all. I serve as president of that board as well, and to my knowledge, there was no communication about this resolution. I can tell you that I do agree that there needs to be and this is my personal opinion, not the opinion of the chamber, but I do believe that there needs to be better communication between the governor and the counties. I do believe that legislature needs to reopen. I do believe that there needs to be communication on every facet of every need, whether it be an economic need, a health need. They're definitely, and as we've seen it today, when you meet over Zoom, the communication is absolutely strained. There's just no doubt about that. To reopen legislature and allow for the local representation to speak on the floor is absolutely vital. So I do agree with that. However, I am appalled that the language is set in a way that it appears to represent the voice of all people in Piscataquis County, and that is not the case. We obviously, there's a lot of political division over masks, over the way that COVID-19 and the shutdown and all of that has been handled. There's so much. It's a hot topic. These are all hot topics, and we know that. This needed to be not political. This needed to be, if there was a resolution from the people, it should just have been, we want local representation, and leave it at that. All of these other things, for every study that there is out there that talks about how masks work or don't work, there's another study that's contrary. I mean, we can bring in studies till the cows come home. That's not what this was about. And I think that is where everyone is so upset, and because that should not have been worded that way. It's the language that I personally have a problem with. And I think it needs to be rewritten. If anything is going to be submitted, I think it needs to be rewritten. So I just wanted to jump in, as you mentioned, the Chamber and Economic Development, and let you know we were not a part of this. We had no input on it at all. We do believe something needs to change as far as legislature and how the governor, works with legislature right now. But I am not in agreement with the language. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you, Denise. Please mute yourself if you're not speaking, and jump in if you want to. May
I speak?
Sure.
Hi, this is Bobby Keniston. I've been very vocal about my dismay, pardon me, my dismay at this so-called resolution. There were just a few matters there are just a few matters that I wanted to make public. And first off, I want to say I'm actually horrified by the way this meeting was conducted. I just want to make that absolutely clear, and that it may in fact be a complete violation of open meeting procedures and laws. According to the Bangor Daily News yesterday, the very fact that they adopted this resolution without a public meeting is very likely a violation of open meeting laws, as well as signing the resolution today when it was not on the online agenda is a violation of open meeting laws.
Bobby, this is Chris. This is Chris.
Yes?
Roland, would you please mute yourself?
Roland, gonna mute yourself.
And so,
thank you.
And
ahead,
so
Bob.
this was all according to the Bangor News yesterday, and a Bangor attorney who specializes in open office government laws. So here, I mean, we've made the point that it's racist. We've made the point that it's xenophobic. Within the chat, you can see, I don't know, because it's been going by pretty quickly, but I can also make it available again in just a moment. I have been pasting throughout the chat. I started a move on petition that probably many of you signed. We had over 603 signatures at the moment. The petition was written to ask them not to sign the resolution and to remove it from all online public forums. After today, I'm quite tempted to rework this petition to call for their resignation. Their behavior today, not recognizing Zoom participants when they made this open as a Zoom meeting. There was nothing in their post on Facebook about Zoom participants not being able to speak or be part of this meeting. They were quite frankly rude to the people who did speak up and disagree, cut them off and so forth. The hypocrisy is astounding when they talk about wanting representation, when again, they created this resolution without a public meeting and adopted it between themselves. I think it is quite clear what they wanted to do was in fact stir the pot and to play to a political base when their position should be apolitical, when they should in fact be helping all citizens of this county. So I'm going to look into filing complaints about this meeting. I don't know if anyone knows probably the proper place to do so, aside from the county commissioners. I mean, I'll be contacting them, of course, their office. But if anyone knows who to contact, I would love that information, like higher up, to really investigate these possible violations of open meeting law, because quite frankly, I believe they deserve the fine, and I do believe they all should resign. This representation has been a joke, and now I'm happy to let other people speak, and I will post that the petition again in the comments if people want to look for it. Thank you very much.
Ben Cookson here from Dover Foxcroft. I may be able to answer that question. I just got off the phone with Bernard Kubetz, the lawyer that was in the Bangor Daily News. And he has a conflict of interest, and he only knows of one other lawyer that has has the experience, and he has a conflict of interest. So he suggested to contact the Maine Municipal Association, and they may be able to point us in the right direction.
Thank you.
This is Diane McCarthy Clark. I'm having an issue with my laptop, so I'm hoping that you can hear me. I'd like to, if I could, read a letter from some members of the East Sangerville Grange. We sent this letter to the commissioners, the county manager, and we've also sent it to the Bangor Daily and Piscataquis Observer. So if you would indulge me a moment while I read this. It says, this letter is written on behalf of the members of the East Sangerville Grange who met virtually on January 17th. They had a lengthy, measured discussion about the Piscataquis County Commissioner's recent resolution of protest for Piscataquis County. The Grange members at the meeting unanimously agreed that the resolution did not accurately reflect the voice of the people of Piscataquis County. A response to the Commissioner's resolution was necessary. The members of the East Sangerville Grange represent a diverse and broad cross-section of the county community. We have members in all 3 districts of the county. There is a significant number of small business owners in our membership, as well as artists, educators, public servants, and retirees. The East Sangerville Grange represents the county population with members both young and old, healthy and medically compromised, natives, and those from away. A few of our members have had the virus or lost someone due to COVID-19. We are a good representation of the people of Piscataquis County and are seriously opposed to the implication that the Commissioner's resolution represents the perspectives of all the county citizens concerning the pandemic. Specifically, the Grange is concerned that the resolution seems to have been created without notice to or input from the citizens of the county that the commissioners serve, a basic expectation of the elected group serving the public. We have no evidence in the county commissioners' meeting minutes that even hints at a consideration of a resolution. In addition, the Grange members have deep objections to much of the content of the resolution, as well as the use of some language which at best is ethnically discriminatory and egregious. Undoubtedly, the commissioners authored the resolution to reflect their concern for the people of the county during the pandemic. We, in fact, share that concern. The resolution includes some depressing, valid points about the enormous challenges that are confronting individuals and businesses that are struggling. Living during the pandemic is extremely difficult. However, the members of this Grange urge the commissioners and the community at large not to funnel our common frustrations with the pandemic at one another or an identified scapegoat. It is very easy to blame people when we are under stress. However, now more than ever, we need to stop with the us versus them mentality. We are not Democrats or Republicans right now, not liberal or conservative. We are neighbors, customers, family, and friends. All the citizens of Piscataquis County need to come together in unity. Together, we can better face the challenges of the pandemic through problem solving and mutual support rather than finger pointing and accusation. Now is the time to be shoulder to shoulder, not divisive, in collective approaches to the pandemic. We, as much as the commissioners, are seeking ways to be safe and healthy. We too are desperate to see the citizens and businesses recover from the devastating impacts of the pandemic, but the path should be cooperative and collaborative. The East Sangerville Grange calls upon the county commissioners to be positive and proactive. Please retract your resolution in the interest of unity against our common foe, COVID-19. If we work together, the county and its citizens will emerge strong from this scourge. Thank you for indulging me for this long reading.
Diane, before we go on, where can that be posted so we can all see it and share it?
Oh, I don't know. It's going to be, I hope, in the Bangor Daily as an op-ed, and I have sent it to the Piscataquis Observer. I will work at figuring out a way that maybe it can be shared on Facebook.
Yes, it's a beautiful piece. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ben, were you next?
Which Ben?
I thought I saw that Ben Richmond.
Yes. Well, thank you, Chris. I just had one small point to raise. I think it must have been the chair of the commission who was speaking, although he never identified himself. But he kept saying that the sole point of the resolution was to get a seat at the table. However, a number of the whereases in the resolution assert controversial points of fact rather than what he claims is actually in the resolution. And I'd say that that's unfortunate, and that the resolution needs to be radically reworked to achieve what he says the stated goal would be. Thanks, that's all.
Thank you. I need to run away to the barber, but before I do, I'm going to buy some ad space in the Observer and maybe the Bangor Daily News to put another resolution up, maybe opposing this one. Won't be long. But if anybody would like to join me, send me an email and we'll work on it together. So at this point, I turn it over. Thank you. It's wonderful being with all my friends.
Is there anybody, this is Leslie Furno. Is there anybody else who would like to speak?
This is Dick Sweat. If anyone's interested, I think I learned a bit about why the legislature is not in session. As you know, one of the key points of this resolution, as described in the 5th paragraph, it says, whereas the governor has repeatedly refused to allow the legislature to convene, review, and address the impact of her rulings upon the free people the legislature represents. I know little about that, so I called up 2 of our local political representatives, both Republican, both one senator and one House member. And the summary of what they said was, I said, why isn't the legislature in session representing us and doing our work? And they said, it's complicated. They said that back in March, when COVID first reared its ugly head, why the legislature temporarily adjourned and gave emergency powers to the governor. And subsequently, when things quieted down a bit, they decided that maybe they should go back. But there were 2 different opinions about what they would do when they went back. The Democrats wanted to consider all the bills and all the issues, in other words, regular session. The Republicans said no, they would not do that. They would only go back if the considerations were limited to COVID issues. And I said, well, why would they do that? Why didn't they want to discuss everything? And one of our elected representatives said he thought that it was because since at that time there was an election, we were leading up to an election, and the Speaker of the House was running for the U.S. Senate, that a lot of the Republicans did not want to give her a public platform on social issues, non-COVID issues. So that's what one person's opinion. The other person's opinion was that since the Democrats had the majority in both the House and the Senate, that the Democrats would push through a lot of spending bills, and that the Republicans didn't want that to happen. But in any case, since it requires the permission or the agreement of the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House, plus both the Republican and the Democratic caucuses in those chambers, they never could agree to go back on their own. And that's one reason why they didn't go back. The second reason is that apparently the governor has independent power to convene the legislature, but she hasn't done that so far. But so it is complicated. They could go back. It's not the governor, according to these 2 elected Republican representatives, it's not the governor keeping our House and Senate from meeting. It is a disagreement between the parties that constitute the legislature.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak?
Did everybody see that Donna just responded saying the recording will be sent to the county manager?
Okay, that's great.
I guess we don't know what the county manager will do with it.
This is Tricia, and I did want to speak a little bit to the language that was used in that document, and how the attempt to evoke founding fathers is deeply insulting to people who value justice and democracy for all, and that we really need to be considering the deeper implications of this letter and what it means and how this meeting was conducted, and that these people need to be removed from office because they are a danger. They're not just bumbling fools.
I would like to agree with that.
Hi, this is Carol Boothroyd. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. You know, I would just, before we leave, I would just like to hear ideas, if anybody has them, of what our next steps should be and how we're going to go about coordinating a response to this. I mean, this was great, but they're not listening. So what's our next step?
Leslie?
Yes, yes.
Hello? Hi.
Yes.
This is Jamie Godion. I live in
Go
Dover
ahead.
Foxcroft. Can you hear me? Are you okay?
We can hear you and see you.
Great. I have written letters to the commissioners or emails following their email address that was posted online. And I'm wondering if we could request that the commissioner's office will be responding to our individual emails. I sent mine on Friday afternoon to them and didn't expect an immediate response, but at some point would those emails be able to be responded to by the commission? I would appreciate that if we could put that in the record.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
Are there any other?
Yeah, sorry. I just I put stack in the chat. It's just a habit from my work. This is Jane Fagan. I just wanted to reiterate the fact that with Bobby's new petition specifically asking for them to resign, it makes a lot of sense to put a lot of gusto behind that and collect as many signatures and show as much public pressure as possible, and then go on to next steps. But I would definitely surge, instead of sending various emails, I would try and collectively send, a big number of petitions to really pressure and get more attention from like Bangor Daily, etc.
Hi, can people hear me? My name is Jay Olander from Milo, Maine, and I just want to go on record as saying I am freaking livid that these people used that kind of language and even drafted this thing without more public input or numbers or whatever. Anyway, I'm beside myself about this, and whatever it takes to get this stuff wiped out, I'm on. Okay, thank you.
Leslie, this is Sue Mackey Andrews. If I could say something for a minute.
Go ahead, Sue.
Thank you. You guys are fabulous. I've been so impressed by your strength and your persistence and your rightness today. Please file a Freedom of Information Act with the county commissioners for all documents related to the deliberations, all emails, all iterations of the document. I think we also need to contact the Secretary of State to find out. I don't think that this qualifies as a legal meeting. I just don't understand how they could take us off Zoom and still continue to meet and do their business. Clearly, they violated the open meeting rule, but more importantly, in my heart and in my mind, they have violated the human rights rule and the respect for the voters and the people who live here. And that needs to be changed. And I don't know how we remove them, but I believe it's absolutely essential that we do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
This is Cindy. I'm wondering what kind of structure we can create amongst ourselves to move this work forward. Since we're kind of a loosely affiliated group of Zoomers right now, I sense that a lot of people on this Zoom want to take action, but we need kind of a plan for who is going to do what.
This is Chris. I haven't left yet. Somebody should offer their email address as a place to at least collect email addresses. If no one else will do it, I will do it. But I think it'd be useful to know who's willing to get more organized.
And this is Gail. If I just can add my 2 cents, I totally agree with Cindy, and thank you, Chris, for offering that. I agree that it'd be wonderful if the majority of people on the Zoom were willing to meet. Someone posted a suggestion, and I appreciate all suggestions, about a Facebook page. My worry about that is, as we've learned in the last year or more, Facebook, Twitter, and all other social media, I think leads to just a lot of strong statements made in a vacuum by people who are emboldened by sitting at their desk and just responding to Facebook. I just think it's dangerous, and I think it's what has led us to where we are in a great part today.
I'd like to back that up with my own recent personal experience. And I came to recognize the very nature of bullying behavior.
Excuse me, can you identify yourself?
Oh, thank you. Sorry, Ed Hills. That bullies on Facebook or on the playground or at the grocery store are only bullies when the community doesn't stand together, because otherwise it's a one-on-one relationship as opposed to a one-on-many. So getting beat up on Facebook isn't necessarily a happy experience, but I'm glad to see see these friends and neighbors coming together. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. This is Leslie, and I just want to make a comment, which is to thank everybody and to recognize that we are in a time where we are seeing the fallout from people not having the courage to stand up, to speak truth to power. And we've seen this now evolving in our country to the point now where we are so divided and there is so much violence and anger. I think that we need to speak up, speak truth when we see the need to do that. And I also think that we do need to come together with courage to move forward and see if we can take back our power, if you will. Any other comments?
Hello. Just wondering if I could speak, please.
Yes. Who can you identify yourself?
Yes. Hi. Hi. This is David Slager. I'm the former tribal representative to the Maine.
I'm sorry, you broke up. Can you identify?
So I had a question. Yes. Hi. This is David Slager, the former tribal representative to the Maine legislature.
Yes. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Well, so I do know Wayne pretty well. He's from up in Greenville. You know, I'm terribly disappointed in people from my post in my district. They know better than this. And I think if somebody reaches out and to talk with them, I think we all know kind of where we're at politically in the country. And I think Wayne and folks like him, but you know, Wayne is a public official, and you know, you have to be responsible for your actions. And what they did there with that comment, you know, it just doesn't represent all of the good people of Piscataquis County. And, you know, I think that if a group of people got together and said, hey, but then afterwards request a formal meeting. I know these guys. Paul Davis is my friend. Paul Stern is my friend. Wayne is my friend. And they're better than this. And I think if we sit down and talk with them as a community, and then hopefully something, and then afterwards we could request formal meeting. That's just my thought. Willie, very much.
David, thank you. You broke up a little bit at the end, but we heard most of what you said, and I appreciate your comments, and I think we probably can pull something together, because I agree with you.
If I could just interject one more time.
Yes.
This is Diane McCarthy Clark. I do believe that if we need to move forward, we need to move forward as a group. I thank Chris Moss for posting his email. If you haven't seen it, please look at the chat. I would suggest that our next step would be to take Chris up on having all of us send our email to Chris with the idea that at the moment we will be an email thread with the idea that we can organize our own Zoom, private Zoom, and then talk more about how to step forward in a very positive way, hopefully in a way that's not going to alienate other people in a way that they won't listen. But I think perhaps we need to look at starting as an email group, and then from there establish some kind of a platform that we can work with. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? There's some hands up, but I think they're left over.
Hi, if I could speak. This is Marie Hartung. I'm actually currently a resident of Portland, Maine, but I did grow up in Piscataquis County, and I was a resident there for the entirety of my childhood until I went off to college at USM. And I just wanted to sort of, I had a whole thing prepared, but obviously these commissioners have no intent to actually listen to the people that they're representing. And they've made that quite clear by, after an entire almost year into this pandemic, refusing to even learn how to use something as simple as Zoom, by, claiming that they can't accurately represent people, or claiming that it's not a legitimate form of meeting, or that they're not going to recognize people just because they're not there in person. It's like other people have said, it's very shameful, it's very disgraceful, and it's especially hard because I'm on the outside looking in. Both of my parents still live in Piscataquis County. My father is currently working. I was planning on attending sort of in his stead, and I was just sort of wondering, I don't want to rehash points that have already been made, if there is, an avenue for anybody like me to actively participate in helping the people that still live there, deal with this issue of, just the non-accurate representation by the commissioners, the deliberately false information that they've put out. I have been sort of keeping updated on whether or not people have found avenues for removing them from their positions, or, going to get them to resign, or whatever needs to happen. It's very hard because I know that, like, as I'm not a legal resident anymore, I can't officially sign on to things like petitions for resignation or anything like that. So I'm just sort of wondering if there's an avenue for anybody like me to help participate in this.
Thank you. I don't know the answer to that, but we appreciate your support. And certainly your support through your family is very helpful. Any other comments about that or